July 20th, 1969. 500 million people held their breath, their eyes fixed on screens, waiting for something that had never happened before in all of human history. But was it real? Today, over 50 years later, a significant portion of the world still believes the greatest achievement in human history was a lie, a Hollywood production, a government psyop. So let's ask the question seriously. Could the moon landing have been faked? And if not, how do we know? The year is 1957. The world is split in two. The United States and the Soviet Union are locked in the most dangerous standoff in history, a Cold War that could turn nuclear at any moment. Then, on an October night, the Soviets did something that terrified the West. They launched a metal ball into orbit. Sputnik. It circled the Earth every 96 minutes. It beeped, and every single American could look up at the night sky and hear it. If the Soviets could put a satellite in orbit, they could put a nuclear warhead over any city on Earth. And then, 4 years later, they did it again. Yuri Gagarin, a Soviet Air Force pilot, became the first human being to leave Earth. He orbited the planet in 108 minutes and returned a hero. America hadn't even gotten a man off the ground. President Kennedy had a decision to make: concede the stars or swing for something impossible.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
It was a declaration of war, not with bullets, with rocket fuel and mathematics. America would land a human being on the moon before 1970, and they had exactly zero idea how they were going to do it. Reaching the moon required solving problems that had never existed before. NASA had to invent new materials, new navigation systems, new life support technology, all while racing the Soviets and the clock. The crew of Apollo 11 were chosen carefully. Neil Armstrong, a soft-spoken test pilot who had already cheated death in a spinning lunar training vehicle. Buzz Aldrin, an MIT-educated astronaut who had walked in space. And Michael Collins, the man who would orbit the moon alone while his crewmates made history below. Then there was the Saturn V, the most powerful machine human beings had ever built. 36 stories of metal, fuel, and controlled explosion. In 8 minutes, it would carry 3 men to the edge of the atmosphere. But getting there wasn't the hard part. Getting back was. If the engine on the lunar module failed to ignite, Armstrong and Aldrin would be stranded on the moon forever. NASA had even prepared a speech for Nixon to deliver in case they didn't come home. And the day has come, July 16th, 1969. Kennedy Space Center, Florida. 1 million people lined the roads to watch. At 9:32 a.m., the Saturn V ignited. The ground shook for miles, and 3 human beings punched through Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour. For 4 days, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins crossed 240,000 miles of empty space. On July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin climbed into the Eagle, the fragile, foil-thin lunar module, and began their descent. Collins remained in orbit above. He would be the loneliest human in history. Then the alarm started. A 12:02 program alarm. The computer was overloading. In mission control, a 26-year-old engineer named Jack Garman made a split-second decision. Keep going. Abort the abort. And then came the fuel warning. Armstrong had 60 seconds of landing fuel left. Below him, the computer was steering them into a boulder field. He took manual control. He was flying on instinct. 18 seconds of fuel. That's how close they came to failure. Then Neil Armstrong descended the ladder and stepped onto the moon. In 1978, a director named Peter Hyams made a film called Capricorn 1, a thriller about a faked Mars landing. It planted a seed, and that seed grew into one of the most persistent conspiracy theories in human history. The theorists had questions, and some of them seemed genuinely hard to explain. Or not. Look at this clip from the mission the American flag appears to be waving, rippling. But there's no atmosphere on the moon, no air, no wind. So how is the flag moving? The answer to this question is quite simple. The flag was designed with a horizontal rod along the top to keep it extended in the vacuum. The astronauts planted it, their movements caused it to swing. But without air resistance, it kept oscillating. Every photograph from the moon's surface has a pitch black sky, no stars, not even one. If they were really in space, why can't you see the stars? It's because it was day on the moon, and the moon's surface in daylight is extremely bright. To expose for the bright lunar surface, the camera's aperture was narrowed, making stars invisible. Another theory is that in some Apollo photographs, shadows appear to fall in different directions. On Earth, with one light source, the sun, all shadows should be parallel, but these aren't. Again, the very simple explanation to this is the moon's terrain is uneven. Craters, hills, and slopes cause shadows to appear to converge or diverge depending on the angle and the camera perspective. Earth is surrounded by zones of intense radiation called the Van Allen belts. Some theorists claim passing through them would have been lethal. The astronauts couldn't have survived. The very simple explanation of this theory is the spacecraft's hull shielded the astronauts from being exposed to lethal radiation while traveling through the Van Allen belts. Apollo 11 returned lunar rock with a crystalline structure that could only form in a vacuum environment with no water and no Earth-like geology. Soviet geologists examined them during the Cold War. Their conclusion was also that these rocks are not from Earth. Armstrong and Aldrin placed laser-reflecting mirrors on the lunar surface. Observatories around the world can fire a laser at those exact coordinates and bounce it back. You cannot fake a mirror that isn't there. The Soviet Union, America's bitter rival, tracked Apollo 11 the entire way to the moon with their own independent radar systems. They never claimed it was faked. If there was any possibility of proving it a hoax, the Soviets, who desperately wanted to win the space race, would have screamed it from every rooftop. Apollo 11 was not just a victory for America. It was a demonstration of what our species is capable of when fear, ambition, and ingenuity collide. When we stop looking at the obstacles and start solving them one at a time. Were there mistakes? Yes. Were there dangers? Absolutely. Did people die preparing for this mission? Tragically, 3 astronauts, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, perished in a launch pad fire 2 years before Apollo 11. They gave their lives for this dream. Skepticism is healthy. Questioning authority is healthy. But there is a difference between asking good questions and refusing to accept evidence. That day, humanity left its home planet and proved, for one extraordinary moment, that the impossible is just the untested. For more videos like this, share and subscribe. See you all in the next one.